Tulsi Gabbard and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez back universal basic income in response to coronavirus. This, to me...
That's interesting.
It's interesting, but it bothers me. It feels like such a cheap shot to take advantage of the crisis as an excuse to shoehorn in universal basic income, which won't work.
I mean, politicians have been doing that forever.
Right.
No, but
so this isn't new.
AOC tried to do exactly this with the Green New Deal.
Right.
They literally said that when that dude was leaving, when he was out on his ear. They're like, this is what we hope to do.
Right. Well, Psycat Chakrabarti.
Right.
Yeah, he said, so this is her advisor. He gave an interview where he said the Green New Deal is not even about the environment. It's about changing the economy.
Oh, okay.
So here you have all of these people being fed this line that we're fighting for the environment. And the real thing in it, if you actually read it, was social justice, leftist politics, and economic reform. They were talking about free healthcare, free college. They put green in front of it. It was a trick.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. I actually think the UBI kind of idea right now is a temporary measure. It's not universal basic income. They're calling it that. This I actually don't think is a bad idea.
No, I agree. I mean, if we're going to have to shut everything down for 2 months, they're saying it's going to last 2 months. It's like, all right, so give everyone like, a stipend.
$1,000.
Yeah, $1,000. Is it a week, a month, or what?
A month.
$1,000
So it's not even that much.
Yeah, it's not that much.
What
I mean, it is a good amount of money, but it's like for 2 months to give everybody $1,000 a month to survive over this next 2 months is pretty great.
Here's why I think this one makes sense. For one, it's basically the economic stimulus we saw under Obama. I'm not saying that was a good idea or it worked. I'm saying this is going to be very, very different from general universal basic income, but it's temporary.
Yeah.
It's a short-term thing, and people can't work anyway.
Exactly.
What?
Everything temporary with the government always ends up being permanent.
I know. That's why I'm saying I don't like it.
Yeah.
They're trying to shoehorn this in.
Yeah.
The general idea,
That's what
though,
concerns me.
on its merits, is basically tons of people are going to be out of work. So giving people, some kind of insurance or taken out of the U.S. coffers to ensure that people can get basic supplies makes sense in the very short term.
Yeah.
But you're right. I don't like this because I think what they'll end up doing is being like, well, now that we have it.
I mean, it works, right? Everyone loves it.
Yeah. Well,
everyone loves it, but then they're going to get lazy and not work anymore. Because
it's not even about that. It's about the how the economy works in terms of low skilled labor and market demand.
Why don't you explain that?
We will. Let me read this and I'll explain to everyone why universal basic income doesn't work. And I'm somebody who's a big fan of Yang, but still critical of his plan. What he was proposing made a little bit more sense, but I'll get into that. They say Ocasio-Cortez and Tulsi Gabbard are calling for universal basic income in response to the growing COVID-19 pandemic. Gabbard introduced legislation on Friday that would provide a UBI payment of $1,000 per month to every American adult until the Department of Health and Human Services declares the outbreak over. And there it is. The outbreak will never be over, right? That's how they keep it going.
Yeah.
The coronavirus pandemic has created a threat to the health and well-being of the American people, as well as to our country's economic stability. While some in Washington are focused on taking care of Wall Street, everyday Americans are getting left behind. That's wrong, said Gabbard in a statement. Now, that I agree with.
Yeah.
We're seeing great concern over... Well, I agree with it to an extent. I do think Trump is trying to propose like payroll tax cuts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I think it's not entirely fair, but there are definitely people much more concerned about oil industry. Quote, I've introduced a resolution that prioritizes people. So our economic relief is placed directly into the hands of every American, rather than getting stuck in bureaucracy or ending up in the pockets of big corporations. They go on to say the idea of UBI was recently popularized by Andrew Yang, who proposed monthly $1,000 payment, although not as a temporary emergency measure. AOC took to Twitter on Thursday to express her support for UBI as one of several programs intended to help ease financial burdens during the crisis. This is not the time for half measures. We need to take dramatic action now to stave off the worst public health and economic effects, tweeted Ocasio-Cortez on Thursday. That includes making moves on paid leave, debt relief, waiving work requirements, guaranteeing health care. And here you go. You know what, man? I cannot stand everything that happens is a sleazy manipulation for her disgusting ideology. It really, really pisses me off.
Yep.
You want to have an honest discussion about healthcare and improving people's lives, I'm down. But when you want to take advantage of people's fears to shoehorn in your stupid ideas that don't work, you're going to get me angry.
Yep. I can see that.
Anyway, although passing UBI could be a tall order even during a national emergency, more conventional relief efforts were moving through Congress with some difficulty. House Democrats introduced a bill intended to alleviate financial burdens by providing paid sick leave, boosting unemployment benefits, and providing nutritional aid while guaranteeing free tests for COVID-19. Well, there we go, right? The measure was initially opposed by Republicans and President Donald Trump, who said that the omission of unspecified certain things meant the bill was unacceptable. Nancy Pelosi announced Friday evening Democrats had come to an agreement with Trump, although details were not immediately available. Trump has been pushing to cut payroll taxes in response to the crisis. Critics, including lawmakers from both parties, largely dismissed the idea, saying the plan didn't go far enough, while noting that it won't do anything to help workers who are sick or laid off due to the virus. I completely agree with that.
Yeah.
Ro Khanna and Tim Ryan proposed separate legislation Friday that would use an earned income tax credit to provide an emergency payment of between $1,000 and $6,000 to anyone who earned less than $65K last year. I don't like that either. We must soften the blow for workers as large gatherings and events are canceled and hours are cut. A payroll tax cut is not sufficient. Okay, we get the point. I don't like how they do these benefits based on where you were last year.
Right.
We're facing a major emergency. People are out of work. People are being told to stay home. People need help now based on their bills now.
Right.
If you bought a house the beginning of this year and you got a mortgage now that you didn't have last year, and you did it because you got a raise in January saying, but you were only making X last year, so we're not going to help you. That makes no sense.
Right.
But anyway, let's talk about UBI, huh?
Sure.
Here's the simple problem. If every single person is guaranteed $1,000, people seem to think that money it's like magic. What they don't realize is money represents the supply and demand system itself. If somebody has no money and needs access to food, they will work to get money to buy the food. Mm-hmm. But the value of the food is based on the lowest cost for someone to produce it.
Right.
If everyone has $1,000, they might as well have zero. Because you need to say to someone, I'm going to give you X so that you produce Y. Let's say, I'll try and break this down. If everybody gets $1,000, then all of a sudden the people who normally made $1,000 per month working part-time at McDonald's say, I don't need to work there anymore.
Right.
My bills are paid. I got my phone. I got my apartment. I'm going to go skate. All of a sudden McDonald's is like, we lost our employees. So they say, hiring. Nobody shows up. Nobody needs it because they already make a free $1,000.
Right.
Now, even though you can make money on top of the UBI, they still say, I don't care. $1,000 covers my rent, covers my phone, and I got my skateboard. Yep. So McDonald's then says, okay, $2,000 a month part-time. Now someone says, woo, that's not bad. I'll take it. Then McDonald's says, okay, to cover the cost of that, our $1 burger is now our $3 burger. Mm-hmm. Then a guy who works at the office across the street walks in and says, I'm going to get $3 for the value menu? Man, prices are going up these days, huh? So he goes back to his boss and he says, look, I can't even afford to get lunch anymore on this entry-level salary. You're going to give me a raise. And the boss says, I can't afford to do it. And he says, well, I'm going to quit. And he goes, all right, fine, I'll give you the raise. It's going to hurt us, but I'll do it. Then he goes to his vendors and says, I had to give all my employees raises. That's why UBI doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
It's not that people are going to be lazy and stop working. There's going to be a lot of, well, actually, yes, sort of. But it's that the lowest cost for production is what sets the value of minimum wage. The numbers is essentially meaningless.
Right, okay.
So it's like, one of the ways I describe it is, imagine there's a baker, right? They went to school for 2 years for culinary arts. And they go work at a Whole Foods and they get paid $15 an hour. Mm-hmm. The minimum wage is $10 an hour. The janitor makes $10. The person who picks apples gets $10 an hour, which means if they can pick one apple per hour, it's $10 plus per apple. I'm just giving hypotheticals. Obviously, apples don't cost that much.
Yeah.
So now the guy who owns the farm says, we got to cover all of the costs. It's $15 per apple. That means the lowest level worker can't even buy one apple with 1 hour of labor because the cost's on top. The baker can. Well, all of a sudden they say we're raising all the minimum wage to $15 an hour. Now the guy who grows the apples and picks them has to get paid $5 more, a 30% or it's a 50% increase.
Yeah.
That hits everybody, and all of a sudden the baker can't afford to buy apples anymore. Goes to his boss and says, I can't afford to buy apples anymore. I need a raise. So the boss gives him a raise, increases the cost of everything else after the fact.
Yep.
So that's why
it's just a circle just keeps coming around.
It does make sense in certain contexts. Like if we do increase the costs, it'll have an effect on imports and exports. So computers that are made overseas will stay the same price because there's no minimum wage for the slave labor at Foxconn in China, which is what the people in these big corporate elites wanted. They wanted them to work for slave wages in China where they're like committing mass suicide. I'm not exaggerating. So that they could sell a $300 phone in America for $1,700.
Right.
So it doesn't work. But let me tell you something else. To all the people who are really, really excited about UBI, how many people do you know want to be musicians?
Not that many.
Enough, right?
I know
Some?
a few people, yeah.
Are they all good enough to be musicians?
No.
And what if they were given money and told you can do whatever you want? Would they stop?
They live in a van down by the river.
And right. So it's this is the dream of like these utopianist far leftists who think I should be allowed to literally do anything even if it produces nothing.
Right.
How many people I know are just not good at, music or skateboarding or whatever, and they're like, I'm going to be the best. Dude, I know some people.
Everybody thinks that.
Not everybody.
Everyone thinks that they're amazing.
To an extent. I mean, there are people.
The musicians that I know that want to be musicians all think that.
And they're not. Otherwise, they would be.
Exactly.
There's so much you need to be successful in, music or acting or whatever.
Right.
I use as examples because they're easy examples.
True.
Everybody knows that bro who knows 3 chords and wrote some dumb song, and he's like, "This is a really good song," and you're like, "You're never gonna be, it's not good." I know a lot of people that are just not good, and they're still trying.
I know.
And bless their hearts,
They got persistence.
Well, right, perseverance is important, but there's also you still do need other things.
Yeah.
So look, I play music. I think I'm pretty good. You play music.
I think you're pretty good.
We're not pro musicians, and
No,
we got some good music, and people have been clamoring like, let's hear you play.
Yeah.
And they're pretty good.
Yeah.
But there's so much more involved to being successful in music.
True that.
So you get all these people who live in their parents' basements, and then you say, we're gonna give you $1,000 a month, and they're gonna be like, I'm gonna quit my job and play music now.
Yep.
And now you're gonna have 1,000, 10 million really awful acoustic folk singers begging to, it's gonna be completely imbalanced because you're creating an economy based on what people think we need versus what we actually need.
Yeah.
And it's almost like college did something similar, and now we have an imbalance where we need more. We need trades. We need carpenters. We need contractors. We need plumbers.
Yeah.
Electricians. And what do we get?
Trade schools are the
liberal
only real
arts,
schools
feminist
out there.
dance class degrees. Now I'm not even exaggerating.
I know, it's still funny.
So look, I like the idea. I think what we're really talking about is not UBI. And I'm kind of like, I'm offended by this. And I think Tulsi's great. I like Tulsi, but this is a no-no. I have no problem criticizing the people that I think, have good things behind them.
If it is only just for a little bit, like just
Then
for...
it's a stimulus.
Yeah, then it works.
Oh,
then it makes sense.
Remember the stimulus check everyone got? Do you remember that?
I don't know.
I got a check in the mail from Obama. I don't remember how much it was for, but I was like, free money.
Like,
I'll take it. And it was meant to make everyone start spending to get things moving.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it worked or not.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say.
I don't know. I don't know if it didn't work.
I don't think it did. Ben Shapiro talks a lot about supply side economics. So the way to really stimulate the economy is to help the companies and to make it easier for them to make products affordable for people. And then people will be able to spend their money.
And
easier.
how do they make it affordable? By going overseas and get it made cheaper.
Yep.
Not necessarily. So if you cut red tape in the U.S., the companies will be able to stay here, right? Or if you do what Trump did with like Carrier and Ford, they will stay. If they're forced to do
Tariffs.
so.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so there's things you can do that aren't shipped overseas. So
True.
I don't know. That's my 2 cents.
I don't get it. Like, so here's the thing about Andrew Yang. What he was talking about was a dividend, essentially a VAT tax on these big tech companies. There's a lot missing from what he was talking about, but he has a decent idea. Alaska, for instance, does pay a dividend to all its residents from oil profits.
Oh.
I think you know how much it is? It's like $3,000 per year or something.
How much?
Yeah,
That's not much.
The Alaska.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Sorry. In Alaska,
No, it's not.
Yeah, it's some small sum, and it seems to work pretty well for them.
Yeah.
I don't know much about
Oil
it, though.
companies go and work, and then the residents get a cut.
Life's pretty slow up there. I've been to Alaska. It's chill, and everyone's just kind of
I heard
doing
that
their
everything
thing.
is really expensive because they're like, you can make really good money if you go up there and do the job that I was doing.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, why can I make that much money? And they're like, oh yeah, the cost of living is like 5 times what it is where you used to live.
They just want girls to move back there.
That's fair.
I was told by the locals that there's like 5 guys to every
It's a
one girl
shortage.
now
Oh,
because
goodness.
all the girls leave and go to like the mainland.
So here's what would actually make
pretty
sense to a certain degree with a UBI is if UBI was funded based only on exports.
Oh, interesting.
If other countries had to pay a tax Or like, well, it trickles down, I guess. But if a product was going to be sold, made in America to another country, they had to pay a premium, and that tax would then be dispersed as a dividend to the American people. That's the closest we get to making sense of it, but you still run into the same problems of now you have a bunch of guitar-playing hippies who are like, I'm going to quit my job working at the cafe, and now you get a bunch of cafes with no employees.
That's true.
So it's a hard injection. This is why command economies don't work. Because supply and demand really is the important, machinery of an economy. I think a mixed economy makes the most sense. We need some regulation.
Yeah.
We need government programs and like a referee, essentially. Where we draw the line is interesting. I've had some good arguments with libertarians about this stuff. For the most part, though, I don't think the people who have actually, looked at UBI have actually looked into it. And they just like, this sounds great. Why don't we just do it?
Yeah.
It does sound good. The
problem is, taxing people to pay people makes no sense. How does that make sense? We're going to take money from you and then give money to you? Do you know what the second law of is it the second law of thermodynamics? Energy in a closed system?
I don't know.
How do you take a closed system of 100 people and give them all $1,000 a month? You have to tax them more than that to pay for the administration and the bureaucracy.
Yeah.
So it literally makes no sense.
Yeah.
So there's a bunch of ways they've talked about making it work. I don't know, man. I've never been a really, really big fan, but I will say I was completely dismissive of it until Yang started talking about VAT taxes, dividends, and Alaska. And then I said, actually, there is a way that you could do something similar. It probably wouldn't be $1,000 a month, but if we treated American industry like Apple exports, they send all their labor to China for the production and then sell it back to us.
Right.
If they had to pay a tariff on that, that still made it worth their while, and then we got a cut of that back to us, that would make more sense.
Yeah.
Still, I don't think I have all the answers. All I know is there are too many roadblocks for these ideas. And more importantly, they're not talking about UBI. They're talking about a stimulus or unemployment benefits for people who are put out by the
people
pandemic.
Who might not want to work, like in the Green New Deal. If you don't want to get a job,
did you know that?
Will cover you. Yeah, that was in there.
The frequently asked questions they published for the Green New Deal said that that the bill would provide economic security for those unwilling to work.
Man.
Yeah, what?
Yep.
It's like, that's kind of why I don't want universal health care, because I don't want to pay for people who are unhealthy.
I don't want to pay for people who don't
you go to great lengths.
I do.
To eat healthy, eat right, eat your vitamins.
Absolutely.
And they want you to pay for some fat dude riding around in a little motor scooter, eating a hoagie in a Walmart, and drinking beer.
Can't stand it.
And they're like, you got to pay for it, man.
Yeah, it's like it works in Sweden because there's like less than 8 million people there.
Yeah, but people in Sweden also
are all healthy though.
Relatively healthy.
Yeah, they care about their environment too. There's
and
trash
they're
on
the
ground.
largest per capita exporter of weapons in the world.
That is also true.
That's the point I'm making though.
Yeah.
As Sweden is exporting tons of weapons, the government makes money that they can redistribute among their citizenry.
Yeah.
That's why I was like, okay, a UBI kind of thing might make sense. I don't think UBI makes the most sense. But look, hey man, we sell a ton of weapons. Trump was talking about it. These companies, they're going to sell to Saudi Arabia. Why don't we take those profits?
So
pay for our healthcare, huh?
Yeah, what up?
It works in Alaska. It's called the Alaska Permanent Fund, and it works because they have so many natural resources.
That they just let companies come and ravage their environment.
Not necessarily. They have a lot of, a lot of preserves.
Not necessarily, but also yes.
Oh, maybe to a smaller degree, maybe, yeah. I mean, I don't know about that. But that's the only reason it works there. And I'm guessing it would work somewhere like Norway that has similar natural resources.
Small populations that are mostly culturally homogenous.
Yeah, we can't compare to we have so many people here.
We do. We're huge. Yeah.
That's the thing that always bugs me too, because I've been to Europe a lot in my life, and people are always like, "Oh, you're American. I know exactly who you are." And I'm like,
no idea.
Do you realize that every state is like a different country?
Yeah, it really is.
It really is.
Somebody hit me up.
No one gets that.
Listen.
Oh yeah, this is great.
Somebody hit me up.
Okay.
And they were like, "Hey, I'm heading to Los Angeles next month, and I wanted to reach out and see if you were available to meet up." And I said,
"Bro,
I live in the East Coast." And they were like, "Yeah, it's no problem." And I was like, "Oh, are you going to fly out here?" And they were like, "No, I figure, I could."
You drive out. It's a 36-hour drive.
No, it's
40 hours.
40 plus.
Probably more, yeah.
Man.
And I was like, "You realize that's like 4,000? Was it like 4,000 miles?"
It is 4,000 miles.
I thought it was less than that.
See.
I think it's like
4,000,
3,500 miles. No, it's not 4,000.
But hold on, I got
like 3,000.
I explained to them, I'm like, that's just thousands of miles. I had a friend who asked me, they were like, when I come visit, do you want to drive down to Texas? And I was like, whoa.
That's a long drive.
That's 30 some odd hours. I'm like, I was in New York at the time. I'm like, I don't know if I can take off that much time for work, man. And they were like, what do you mean? They're like, how long will it take to get there? And I was like, dude, 36 hours of driving straight?
Yeah, without stopping.
And they were like, wait,
well,
what?
It's 36 hours from here to Arizona because I just did that drive like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So, and it's 2,400 miles from here to Arizona, so it can't be 4,000.
Yeah, you're right.
It's 3,000?
It's 2,789.
Here's what happened. In both instances, people in Europe have a country like France.
Yeah.
And they assume France and the United States, as both being countries, are the same thing.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Countries are the same size.
France is about the size of Texas.
Oh my gosh.
Texas is its own country.
So yes,
it really
listen.
is.
And the people there are actually really awesome.
Yeah,
you know, listen.
Texans are cool people.
When you're in Paris, it's a couple hours drive to London.
I know. I drive around Europe, and it's like 4 hours. I'm in a new country. 4 hours later, I'm in a different country with completely different cultures.
Languages,
they thought that driving from New York to Texas would be like driving from Paris to like Marseille or something. Yeah, which could be like 4 or 5 hours. We leave in the morning. We'll get there. It's like,
no,
like that's crazy.
No. It's like, oh, cute.
They don't realize the United States is more like all of Europe.
Yep.
Yeah.
That the states are very, very different.
Yeah, it's basically the EU essentially. I mean, in saying how it's separated,
it's a
and different.
Union.
It's a union.
Look,
it's the United States.
Yeah.
Texas, they're rather divided at the moment. But.
Texas was a country, the Republic of Texas, for several years. Like the history of many of these different parts of the U.S. are very, very, very different.
The Lone Star State.
Yeah. Yep. So you end up with people in Europe not realizing it, and then you end up with these urban folk who are like, if Denmark can do it, why can't we? It's because Denmark has what, like 3 million people?
Yeah, Denmark's tiny.
It's like if you...
It's tiny.
So here's my proposal, though. Okay, New York, give universal health care to all people in New York, including those who don't live there.
Yeah.
Because they've talked about California is giving health care to people who are non-citizens under the age of 26.
Oh.
So New York should have no problem, if they all believe this, to give free health care to all of its citizens and anybody who comes in.
Wants it. Yeah, absolutely.
So
let's go.
Drive on in. Why don't they do it?
Put the pedal to the metal.
No, but I'm dead serious. Why won't New York do this?
They know it's impossible.
Yeah, they do.
I don't have an answer.
Yeah, they know.
Could you imagine what would be like if all of a sudden they said anyone can come to any hospital free of charge?
That would be insane.
First of all, you're gonna get a bunch of hypochondriacs being
Definitely
like,
true.
I'm sick, treat me. You're gonna see massive wait times. You are gonna see a reduction in care. People are gonna die. Yep. And here's the challenge, because there's a hard reality that people don't seem to understand. Some people won't get health care, no matter what. Resources are finite. I wish it weren't true, but it is.
Yeah.
And we can pretend all day and night. But what bothers me about this stuff, about the socialists and AOC and these other people who are like, we should be giving universal health care, is like, dude, there is no system where everyone gets health care, period.
That's an ideal that we cannot achieve.
It's like a little kid being like, why doesn't the government just give everyone money? Because then they can have whatever they want. And you're like,
it does sound like that,
because people have to make the stuff. Nuh-uh. Like, you just go to the store and like you can buy the food, but the food has to be made by someone. But the store just has food. Why don't the stores just give the people food? It's so dumb. And you're like, okay,
all right, Alexander.
We need Star Trek replicators. Boom.
Yeah.
Problem solved.
Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. We do the show every Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., sometimes an hour or two. And we do have a full live recorded version of the show that includes a lot of comments and smaller segments you probably don't see. If you want to check that out, you can watch live at 8 p.m. Monday through Friday, or become a member of this channel. And for $5 a month, you get full access to all of the recorded podcasts. Every day after the show, we make them available in the community section of this YouTube channel. So don't forget to subscribe and stick around for more segments and more shows Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Thanks for hanging out, and we will see you all in the next show.